Carol, are you ready to fill our cups again? We are ready to have our cups filled. We had Carol and Max for a special roundtable luncheon yesterday where we just talked about some external and internal aspects of our school culture that we could address. We used a T-chart. We do the principal approach here. Thank you. Let's give Carol a welcome of applause, and here we go.
Good morning. Welcome back. It's so good to see that most of you came back. Good for you. This is your third day, my second day. This is rigorous. But I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to be with you, get to know so many of you again. And today we are talking about probably the thing I love to talk about more than anything else in the world, and that is the love of learning. And so as we begin this morning, I want you to realize that we're talking about the love of learning, but we need to be looking into the eyes of our children as we think these things. This is not an abstract idea. Yesterday we discussed a lot of abstract ideas. Today we're talking about flesh and blood. So as we begin, keep that in mind. Choose one of those little faces that you look at all year and put it before you. Maybe one that has been a little prayerful, or one that has stumped you a time or two. Not necessarily the one that is just always perfect. Let's think about the flesh and blood today and how we can be the vessels that God needs us to be in the lives of our children to bring each one to their fullest value in Christ. So I am realizing today that I am closer to heaven, a mile high. Isn't that what I think Marilyn told me? It's 5,500 feet or something here, the elevation. Well, I live under sea level in Tidewater, Virginia. We're beach people. So my head realized that this morning. But I'm excited and ready to go and talk to you about the love of learning. So I want us all to realize that this is a providential moment. We are here today talking about this very thing by God's purpose. We are providentially here. It's exciting and inspiring to me because I recognize that you're the individuals that He has drawn together to impact the lives of hundreds of young people. Hundreds of young people. And do you know, I heard once a statistic, this was many years ago, I'm sure it's been updated statistically and modernly, but that the average teacher touches the lives of over 2 million people in a normal career. Not just touches, but what did we learn yesterday about education? We're not just touching lives, we are enlightening, correcting, forming, and fitting over 2,000 little precious lives. So that's quite a sobering thought. A whole year of school is a long journey in the life of a child. You know that. It's long. It can get tedious. You do the same things many times. There are routines that need to be followed. It's a long journey for a little child. A year of school in God's eyes is just a blip in eternity, of course. And for us, the older we get, it seems like a blink. But think about our children and how every single day is a lifetime to them. So that's why I believe that this topic, the love of learning, is one of the most important things that we can give some time to and allow the Holy Spirit to give us more insight and a little more feeling about the philosophy, methods, and curriculum that we all have to study and learn, and those things are important, and those things are basic, but without this spirit of love of learning, it's futility, folks. It's futility. So we want today to think those thoughts. As I look at you, I want to remind you this morning that each one of you is a living textbook. You are a textbook that is read and studied and learned and accounted for every day by every student in your class. So when we sometimes say the principal approach makes the teacher the living textbook, we all think, oh, yeah, someday we'll be there. No. You are the living textbook. Because who you are today and what you know today is what your students are learning. It's their study. And you are the living textbook day after day. You're being measured. You're being dissected in the minds of all those students. You're being studied. The impressions that you make are being passed around. You're a topic at the dinner table every night. Did you realize that? Who you are, what you like, where you go, what you think, what you wear, the presuppositions you don't even know that you have, the internal and external versions of you. You are the living Technicolor textbook, just as you are. So is that scary? Watch yourself and consider every moment what kind of textbook you are. And I know that you do. I feel the conscientiousness in this faculty. It's impossible to walk into this school without realizing that you are serious about education. And you're doing an excellent job. And you have wonderful leadership. And that is, I can't say enough about your school. The second thing I realize as I look at you as a faculty is that you are each part of a community of scholars, a learning community. And this is a place that parents bring children to have scholarship and character formed in them by mentors, by you. They come here because it's a place that worships Jesus Christ. And they know that in Christ is all wisdom and all knowledge. They come here first for Jesus Christ, secondly for you. That's a relief. This community is commended because it honors and guards liberty as a gift from God. And that's not the situation in most places. Remember, as someone said earlier, is so often commanded in the Bible for us to remember that it occupies 3 columns in the Strong's Concordance. Remember, 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 God says. So I commend you as a school community for remembering his story and for teaching it to your children. I'd like to start this morning, first of all, by praying for our children. Let's pray together. Father, we're so grateful that you have entrusted us with enlightening and correcting, informing, and fitting the precious hearts and minds of your children. We thank you for that trust. And I pray that today, as we think these thoughts, look into your word, and use some common sense in thinking about teaching and learning, that you would inspire, you would cultivate in us a new love for learning ourselves, and you would make us fit teachers. We thank you for the opportunity again to think and meditate and learn. And we love you today. We love you as the master teacher. And we offer you this time in your precious name. Amen. Okay. Am I projecting? Good. I'd like to make a point about teaching and learning, first of all, by telling you a true story. This is a real story, and the name of the story is The Afternoon Lion. My friend Jeff Myers, who is the author of a book called Passing the Baton, and he's the director of the Summit Ministries, promised his young daughter a safari. He had taken her with him to South Africa to a speaking engagement, and she very patiently waited through the 3 days of the conference. And on the 3rd day, when it was over, the 11-year-old was excited to finally be driven out into the bush to meet the wild, dark, jungled Africa that she knew from her books. Arriving at the park, the guide loaded a Jeep, took them for an afternoon drive. They were eager to see animals from a safe distance and were just a little bit nervous. Suddenly, this jeep stopped, and the guide showed them, not 30 yards away, a large male lion stretched out, just like the king of the jungle. The guide stopped the jeep for a close-up look while he gave them a brief lecture on how quickly how fast a lion can run in an hour, how much they eat each day, and other interesting facts to hear when you're 30 yards away from a real-life male lion. Jeff's daughter snuggled up to her dad's shoulder, full of awe and wonder at the size of the lion, his beauty, the fearsomeness of being there. The proximity, though, was making Jeff a little bit uneasy, and he asked the guide, "Are you sure it's safe to stop so close to this lion?" The guide sighed and reluctantly said, "Don't worry. This is an afternoon lion. He has eaten, he's satiated, not hungry, and he'll just lie there. He's bored by the suggestion of another meal." Suddenly, the ambience of the moment shifted. The drama and adventure was gone. The excitement dissipated. The buoyancy went out of the experience. Why? Jeff didn't want to be eaten by a lion, but he wanted the experience, the awe of the possibility of being eaten by a lion. He went back to his room that night, and he wrote in his journal, "Lord, don't let me be an afternoon lion. Don't let me be satiated with life. Don't let me be complacent and bored and boring." Now, this is a great story that we can learn a few things from. Your children are looking every day for awe, for excitement, for romance, for adventure. A good teacher causes students to be expectant for the wonder of learning, to expect affirmation of their own personal value, and to be continually taken places they have not gone before. They want and need to be inspired by courage, strength, and yes, by excellence. Differential equations, the first book review, AP Latin. Let's climb that mountain. We'll meet lions on the way. Let's make it an adventure. Don't be an afternoon lion. Immerse your students in the love of learning because you love learning. Because you love learning. And to you, it's an exciting adventure, a real-life romance. The reality is the greatest adventure of life for anyone is education. It's true. It's been made into a humdrum, let's get a degree, get a good job, have a good life experience. But that's not what education is. Education is a great adventure. The consuming passion of most people is learning. Look at how much money we spend on learning all kinds of things all the time. It's such a strong motivation in us to learn. We forget that we do so many things just for that purpose, for learning. Let's look at this scripture. Just before the death of Moses, he spoke to his people about teaching. And he said some words that are just some of my favorite words in the Old Testament. He said, "May my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, like gentle rain upon the tender grass, and like showers upon the herb." There's a wonderful description of that moment of light bulbs coming on. that moment when there's a connection between teacher and student. It is like the rain. It's like distilled speech falling on as dew, the gentle rain on the tender grass, showers upon the herb. It's not forced, is it? It's not forced. It's natural. You're surprised sometimes when the lights go on. Woo, that was a learning moment. Boy, I'm glad of that. How'd that happen? But it's because of that gentleness. It's because of the impartation of truth. It's because of that spirit of wonder, the wonder and the awe that is real learning. Moses goes on in this chapter 32 to exhort his people to consider the years of many generations, to remember the days of old. He concludes the exhortation with a strong admonition to see education of children as our very life. Take to heart, he says, all the words by which I am warning you today, that you may command them to your children, that they may be careful to do all the words of this law, for it is no empty word for you, but your very life. And by this word you shall live long in the land that you're going over the Jordan to possess. His description of teaching and his exhortations hold a world of meaning for our topic today. It's a great topic. We have a common experience of walking into a classroom, and those first few seconds, it's always with a little bit of, I wouldn't say nervousness, but just uncertainty. How's it going to go? You know, how's this going to come off? Are we going to connect? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be fruitful? So we have to learn to put the first things first. First things first, and that's the teacher's responsibility. First thing is that children are learning. And the key to that is for the teacher to embody himself, the love of learning. This morning we're going to talk about 3 different topics. First of all, we're going to talk about excellence, because I think we have sometimes pagan ideas of what excellence is. Secondly, we're going to talk about language, because love of language is the back door to love of learning. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is what Jesus meant when he said that we should enter the kingdom of God as a child. So we're going to start by talking about how we get from progressivism, which where we were, to excellence, which is Christian education, because all excellence is in Christ. So we're going to talk about the integrity of the learner. That word integrity means whole, the oneness of the learner. And let's realize what learning really is and what it's all about. To live is to learn. It's impossible to live without learning. It's as simple as that. Learning is that simple. When we over-mechanize it, we make it a complicated, almost impossible thing. It's very simple. Learning is natural. We are built by God to be learners. Learning is the first impulse of the infant whose eyes look instinctively to the eyes of the mother, and there finds that smile, beckoning acceptance into a world where every glint of light and every speck of shadow has something to teach that small little soul. Preschool learning, we're told, is the fastest, most prolific learning stage of life. Language is acquired then. Relationship models and patterns are built. General knowledge about every domestic and common thing is filed away as touchstones to everything else that will ever be learned. The beginnings of a structure of truth is being laid down as a life paradigm in kindergarten for our children. Very important learning time. Because learning is therefore natural to every human mind. We are built to be learners. Our bodies are receptors for learning. We have 5 senses that feed our inquisitive minds continually, that track information, that continue to identify, to measure, to connect, to store information for future use. So we learn, and we have habits and propensity to learn long before formal education makes us students. Don't ever say my children can't learn. They're learning. The problem is they don't always learn from their teachers. Still, every single one of us is a unique individual, made by God in His image, able to think and reason and imagine and learn and choose, and yet uniquely individual in his thoughts, his imaginations, his reasoning, his learning skills, and his choices. Here is the conundrum. We are created to be learners, but each of us has a uniquely individual mind made by God for His purposes. Every one of them is correct and good and whole and right and of great value. We learn in different ways. We learn at different rates, in different styles, according to the way God designed us. When formal learning begins, formal schooling or education, or when one of us takes the task of being teacher to another, we cannot presume the learner to have the same learning preferences as we do. A few days in any classroom presents convincing evidence of the folly of such a presumption, and yet many of us continue to persist because it's natural to us. What's wrong with these kids? This is how you learn. Something's wrong with you if you can't learn from me. Then they put us in a classroom and expect us to be like every other child when we're individual, uniquely made, God-gifted people. Therefore, systems of education often are designed upon the paradigm of the teacher's learning preferences and hold most rigidly to this paradigm, suffering millions of potential achievers to lose hope, to assume inferiority, and to take a lower place in life because they do not fit the preferred pattern. Historically, the best educated among us were taught individually by parents and tutors until prepared to enter university and self-educate, which is what university really was and should be. Today's schooling is mechanized, standardized, unified, sanitized to the point of ineffectiveness. And yes, we have to have policies, we have to have standards, we have to have routines, we have to have ways of doing things that keeps us all on the same track. So we have this balance that we have to find. Real learning cannot be stamped out by a machine. Real learning is incubated in the heart, as we saw yesterday, nurtured in the mind, and expressed individually through the interests, the understandings, the reasoning and imaginations, and the vocabulary of each learner. Here's the fact. The mark of greatness is not sameness as others. It is a fully cultivated, individual, God-given identity. The mark of greatness is not sameness as others. It is a fully cultivated, individual, God-given identity. In our Christian schools, teachers and parents have the freedom to share God's view of what is most important. We don't have to look at man-made systems and methods and standards, neglecting what is obvious to God. He designed the learner. He gave us the book upon which all other books become relevant to us as Christians, and He showed us the pattern of learning that edifies, equips, and elevates learners to His standard. So let's talk about what I call authentic Christian excellence. Because isn't it excellence that makes us think we all have to do the same number of assignments, we all have to do the same assignment because there is a standard that we have to grade our students by. And if they don't all do it, and they all do every one of them, and they're all measured by the very same standard, then it isn't what? What do we worry about? Fair. It isn't fair, right? Well, is it fair that we teach only the ones that easily learn and that we grade down those others who have gifts in many other ways and we relegate them to a place that is inferior or separate or treated differently. Is that fair? No. That's not doing what God called us to do. So let's define excellence. And what I want you to see as we look at this is, first of all, we have to remember that we only have the potential to achieve any excellence because of Jesus Christ. The definition of excellence is Christ. That is the primary definition. His character, his wisdom. That is our measure. But authentic Christian education is marked by excellence because excellence is in Christ. The definition of academic excellence goes beyond the superficial and worldly definition of excellence that means excelling or surpassing others or superiority. The definition of excellence that is rooted in biblical thought describes excellence in moral terms as value, virtue, strength, or whatever contributes to exalt man or render him blessed. Let's think about that. Webster says the state of possessing good qualities in an unusual or eminent degree, the state of excelling in anything, any valuable quality, anything highly laudable, meritorious or virtuous in persons, or valuable and esteemed in things. Purity of heart, uprightness of mind, sincerity, virtue, piety are excellencies of character. Symmetry of part, strength and beauty are excellencies of body. An accurate knowledge of an art is excellence in the artisan. Elegance in writing. In short, whatever contributes to exalt man or to render him esteemed and happy or to bless society is in him an excellence. Now, the words that I want you to notice in that definition are in that last phrase, is in him an excellence. How does that change the meaning of excellence? Do you think it might be that excellence is an individual value? That what's excellent in one person may not be excellence in another. That we express and exhibit excellence out of the gifts God's given us and out of who we are. And it's a matter of individuality. Does that change the way we think about excellence as superiority? And notice that Webster's definition describes mainly internal excellence. Did you notice that? Virtue, purity of heart, uprightness of mind, sincerity, piety. So let's stop a second, because I think it's important we ponder this a little bit. See what your neighbor thinks about it. Discuss the nature of excellence from a secular perspective and from a Christian perspective. How do you see that? Let's take about a minute and a half. Here's a couple of great thoughts. Who has a great thought? Who has an excellent thought about excellence? Anybody want to share? What do you think about this? Anybody? Oh, we're being very quiet today. Yes. Yeah.
Focused on what the secular brings out the pride. It's more that you're focusing on what others, rather than what this internal, this humility, this gratitude.
That's a very good observation. I think that's really true. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
We, from a secular perspective, we are so concerned about fairness, making sure
sure that everything is objectively right. We look at objective excellence. And yet,
we learn in the parable of the laborers in the vineyard that everybody gets the same wage. The Lord didn't care when they came into the vineyard to do their effort. They all got paid the same.
Yep. There is something to ponder. Anybody else? Yes.
I was just going to share that from a secular point of view, there has to be someone less than. There's somebody lacking for there to be excellence in the secular view, where in the Christian perspective, it is so much more that everything, all of their excellence glorifies the Father. And so they're all excellent.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of common sense as well. I think the fact is that every child is learning at a different rate, in a different way, in a different style. And when we try to time it and say you have exactly 2 days to learn these spelling words and then there's a test, the child who takes a little bit longer, who may need 3 days, may need a little more practice, may need a little more tutorial approach there, is going to learn those words and have an excellent spelling test score, but not in your time frame. So at any one point, this was brought up at the break. I had a great question from one of your colleagues, which we'll be addressing in a little while, about grading. When we just arbitrarily say, now's the moment you have to demonstrate excellence, what are we doing? We're choking learning, right? Because that child's going to get a 75 on the spelling test. Whereas if he had a little more time, he could get 102. So it's a lot to think about here. I just wanted to get that thought about excellence kind of out of our view, because I know that's what we all go back to. We all go back to fairness. What's real, what are the standards, worldly standards? And yes, we do have to take the standard tests, and we have to show that our school is excelling, and we have to measure academic progress, and all that is true. We're a school, and that puts us at a great disadvantage when it comes to learning, quite honestly, because it's so difficult to bring every child to his fullest expression in Christ within a group setting. That's why you as teachers have to begin to see yourself not as a teacher, but as a tutor. You as a teacher need to have a tutorial perspective. Your job is to gauge continually where everybody is, who needs what, when they're going to get there, and how you need to implement support. Because every single child can learn. And we don't want to kill it before it gets started. All right, thank you for that. Now, let's talk about how does the definition of excellence translate to the high calling of Christian schooling? And I'm saying Christian schooling because it can be within the classroom, it can be parents in the home, it can be a homeschool family. Schooling excellence depends on the character and competence of each individual teacher to demonstrate certain basic qualities. And this is my own opinion, so you can argue with me if you want. First of all, a personal vision that goes beyond the walls of the classroom, that encompasses a generation, that encompasses posterity, that encompasses the nation and the nations. One of the great advantages that we have in the principal approach is the notebook approach, which we still do at Stonebridge very faithfully. Every child develops a notebook in each subject in their own handwriting. And we tell the children, you can use these notebooks to teach your own children. And do you know, the first time I said that to a child, I didn't expect to get any result at all. But I got such delight back from just saying that to a little child, a little fourth grade girl. You can use your notebooks to teach your children one day. Oh, I can. Oh, suddenly it's treasured. And that imparting that multi-generational understanding is so important to the kingdom of God. Second thing, a biblical knowledge of the heart of man, a biblical knowledge of the heart of man, and appreciation for the gift of humanness, the gift of humanness that God created, that he gave us as a gift. Don't we get frustrated with each other when we're just human? Humans. What is that commercial about? Humans. We get a little frustrated sometimes with our humanity, but it's a gift from God. And so that we have to always keep before us. The third thing, mastery of the subject in light of providential history and the principles of the subject. That is a key thing. We must ourselves be those Christian scholars in order to impart the skills of scholarship. The fourth thing, aptness in teaching, of whom Chaucer could say, and gladly would he learn and gladly teach. Do you remember from high school Chaucer's the clerk in the Canterbury Tales? And gladly would he learn and gladly teach. I always identified with that. It's a joyful thing to us to teach. You know, you just can't wait to get in the classroom and give forth. It is an aptness that many of us are gifted with, and you are. You wouldn't be here. That desire to draw out of other people. And then the last thing, the life and character that demonstrates the love of Christ and the love of his people. That these things are basic and key. Cultivate the love of learning by first shedding all the trappings of progressive education and embracing Christian methods to gain the consent of the learner. So here we are. We've heard endlessly yesterday about Christian scholarship and all these major ideas that we need to be imparting to our children. We heard the sad history of education in America, how we got where we are. Common Core didn't happen last year. It's been going on for a long, long time. This latest iteration of it is just the latest diabolical expression of something that has been underway for many, many decades, actually 2 centuries. And so we have to shed the trappings of progressive education by first of all realizing how much of what we do is out of habit, out of something we learned out of our background in progressive education. We have to identify those things. What are they? And one of them is this idea of excellence, this secular idea of excellence. And then we have to fully embrace the Christian methods that will allow us to gain the consent of the learner. And so let's just remember that John Dewey's progressive education limited the understanding of the nature of the child to be that of a physio-psychological organism responsive only to its physical, social, political environment, socialistic, atheistic demands of the time. This is how John Dewey saw the child in all those 700, 300, 600 books he wrote. And of course, how he formed several generations, formed the thinking of several generations of public school teachers. This is how the child is seen. And what would we call that view of the child? What could we call it? Progressive methods employ the pagan idea of man and government. Do you see it in that? The pagan idea of man and government, the pagan view of the child. Everything that article, that Frothingham article, told us yesterday about the Christian idea of man and government, you can substitute child, the Christian idea of the child. Because that idea we have of man and government, guess what? We impose it on our children. That's why it's so important we root it out and we replace it with a truly Christian idea of man and government. The progressive methods employ the pagan idea of man and government, seeing the child's value only as he forms a part of the successful classroom and contributes to its goals, its achievement averages, the pace of its scope and sequence, the expectations of the teacher. The biblical Christian view sees the child as a living soul, responsive to the demands of conscience. This is the mark of historic American education, as we so vividly saw in the letter that John Quincy Adams wrote at the age of 10. He exhibited that, didn't he? So beautifully and eloquently for us, a 10-year-old. Practicing the excellence of Christ begins by affirming the child as created in the image of God, created to serve God's purposes. So look at your handout that I gave you, called Gaining the Consent of the Learner. And this is a means, this is a measuring stick for you to use to lay against your own methods, your own instincts, and measure yourself against the progressive idea, the pagan idea, so that you can identify what remains in you of this falsity, what remains in you of the lie about children, and root it out and replace it with a biblical classical approach. There are two columns on this chart, and actually this is in the Teaching and Learning book. I've just expanded a little bit. This is really the heart of the whole matter. So in the left column, we have the progressive philosophy, which is completely based upon externally governing the child, the pagan idea, external control. Conditioned learning and behaviorism, cite Pavlov, Skinner, Piaget, Dewey. Conditioned learning and behaviorism, externally oriented. The organism is acted upon, prodded, provoked, impressed. Sees the child as the physio-psychological organism subject to the physical, social, political environment. We see the child that way, we treat the child that way. And the methods then used are all external. Stimulate the organism. Stimulate the organism to need, to want, to desire, to excite, rouse, goad, or provoke into action through physical or psychological stimuli. The organism's desires justified as needs, legitimate to a status. So the first method is stimulation, external stimulation, all kinds of things going on, rhymes and colors and all kinds of stimulation, rewards and bribes and whatever to get the child to do it. That doesn't work. I learned that when I was potty training my son. Stimulate. Second thing, motivate. Motivate. This is a word we need to root out of our vocabulary. We don't want to motivate anybody. Motivate the organism to satisfy needs externally. This is consumer-oriented. The organism not committed to subdue the environment to the demands of conscience. Organism is compelled to submit to external environment with diminished conscience. This is the progressive method. The third method is enculturate. Stimulate, motivate, enculturate the organism to conform and shape desires and their satisfaction to society-approved behavior. Satisfaction is achieved or learned through successful adaptation and adjustment to the environment, the physical environment, the social environment, religious, economical, political, enculturate. And then finally, indoctrinate. Deny the doctrine of authority of God or His Word, validate truth through sense knowledge, conviction reinforced through satisfaction of the physio-psychological desires. Truth is what is true, what works. Knowledge is discovered through experience. It is not by authority. These methods, this progressive methodology, the stimulating, motivating, enculturating, indoctrinating that was propounded by John Dewey and before him in Seed Form, Horace Mann, and many others, it results in a dependent character. That's what it's designed to do, to form dependence. If our children are waiting to be stimulated, to be motivated, if they're enculturated to only be conscious of how they fit around them, and indoctrinated, then they will display dependency. This is the plot against America. And those words are not too strong. This is the plot against our liberty to make us dependent so that we need a king. Look at the definition of the word consent before we talk about the Christian method. There at the bottom, consent is to be of one mind to agree. To be of one mind to agree. Con and sentio, to think with, literally in the Latin. It's agreement of mind to what is proposed or stated by another. Agreement of mind to what is proposed or stated by another. It's accord, hence a yielding of the mind or will to that which is proposed. Accord of minds, agreement, unity of opinion. This is the cultured ground that the seeds are sown into in teaching and learning. This is, consent is the softened soil. Rosalie Slater used to talk about soil softeners and how teachers needed those soil softeners, those little methods, little means, little ways of softening the heart and inviting the consent. And she used many things. I'm going to talk to you about poetry in a little bit. So, agreement, accord, it is agreement of the mind to what is proposed, a yielding of the mind or will to what's proposed. And that's what's necessary for learning. It's what's necessary. It's what's necessary for any kind of learning to be real. Yes, we can impose. Yes, we can stimulate. Yes, we can threaten. Yes, we can use grading. Yes, we can motivate. Yes, we can write notes to parents. Yes, we can enculturate. We can indoctrinate. But we're not teaching when we do those things. We're forming a dependent character. We're not bringing the child to the fullest expression of his value in Christ. So let's look at the Christ-governed by consent methodology. And the scripture there is, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. We are teaching hearts and minds. And you got to get around the mind to the heart many times before the mind will yield, right? This is internally oriented. Individual action proceeds from within. The response of the child comes from within them, not from the environment. It's expressed. Man is a living soul responsive to the demands of conscience. And so the methods are really very simple. Every methodology that you will use that will be effective will fall under one of these four categories. Instead of stimulating, we are inspiring. We inspire the heart. We inspire the heart to commit thy way unto the Lord. And the best way to do that is, first of all, through relationship. And we're going to talk about that in a minute more fully. Just kind of tuck that away. Inspire the heart. And then by bringing truth. Scripture. Bringing truth. Inspire the heart. Bringing purpose. Instead of motivating, we consecrate the individual to Christ. He shall give thee the desires of thy heart. Consecrate the individual to Christ. This child belongs to Jesus Christ. This is his child. And we approach him then with that respect. The methods are production-oriented, enabling him to produce his own learning, enabling the child to be productive. It's very dishonoring to consider a child as only a consumer. I will tell you what to do. Do it because I told you to do it. Fill in the blank, finish the work, take the test. That's dishonoring. we want to honor that child's need to be productive. He needs to be producing his learning. And much of our methodology is based upon that idea. We're going to talk about that more too. Instead of enculturating, we cultivate. Cultivate the new man. Bring every thought into conformity with Christ. And cultivating is the practice of the teacher, continually, continually. And then instead of indoctrinating, we instruct in the knowledge of salvation. 2 Timothy, continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast learned the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Christ Jesus. This methodology, which we saw exhibited in John Quincy Adams yesterday, produces the free and independent man. The free and independent man. The man who is responsive to conscience. The man who will stand for truth. The man who lives by principle and conviction. Not because he's externally controlled by fear, by status, or whatever else, but because he's internally controlled by conscience and his heart has been cultivated. Now, this is still a little bit abstract. I realize that, but we're getting there. So this is very, very important that you come back to this again and again and measure your lesson plans against these ideas. Think about what you're doing, because for most teachers, so much of what we still do, even when we have the freedom in a Christian school, can sometimes be rooted in a false philosophy. So, from this discernment of the formative nature of methodology, the teacher inculcates the principles of the subject through methods focused on conscience and character and the heart of the child. This is, in essence, the foundation ground of the American Christian principle approach education. In a nutshell, this is it. So, let's take on a little challenge. Do you feel up to that? No. Are you inspired to? Good. With these general principles in mind, I'm going to give you just a little scenario. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to kind of think together. Using the opportunity of taking a new class of first graders down the hall to lunch on the first day of school. Now, this is a challenge if there ever was one. And you upper school teachers, you may just be thinking, oh, a piece of cake. You better find a lower school teacher to give you a little hint about this. With these general principles in mind that I'm about to give you, use the opportunity of taking a new class of first graders down the hall to lunch on the first day of school to instill the love of learning. How would you do that? Let's think about it. Let's think about it. Here are some guidelines just to help you along. I know this is hitting you fresh. Have a plan and be ready to sell it to your students. You got to get them buying in. Make it purposeful, doable, measurable. Anticipate their needs and provide guidelines. Communicate the plan clearly, using some imagery if you can, picture words or whatever. Hover and give positive feedback. And then commend and celebrate. So if you want to get maybe with 3 or 4 to do this, I'm going to give you about 6 minutes maybe. And then come back and see who has a great idea, because I have a great idea, and I'll share with you too, okay? Who has a good plan? And don't just pick on the kindergarten teacher. They know what to do. Who has a good plan? That's okay. Somebody's pointing up there. We need a volunteer. Mr. Court. Okay. Yes.
And it has been my observation for many years. I have observed the classes coming and going because in my room, they bring them to me and then they go from my room. But I've observed in Mr. Cornell's 5th grade how over the years, his class is so governed wherever they go, the lunchroom, down to the North Auditorium. And I've always kind of gone, wow, that's interesting. Because when they get to me in the 6th grade and up to high school, comings and goings is a very serious challenge for the upper grades. So I asked Mr. Cornell right out, what do you do? How do you do this? And he gave us a really good thought.
Well, I don't like this. Anyway, what I do with my class and I take them, where I give them permission to visit quietly in the hallway, or I give them permission to visit quietly or not at all. So I put them at choice, and so they have an opportunity, and it's trip by trip basically. I don't say, okay, we're not going to talk the rest of the year if you foul up one time or something. But it gives them an opportunity here at school to socialize a little bit, but in a quiet, appropriate way. I tell them to be present to the situation. We have to be present in our classroom. It's a time to be quiet. At recess, you can be as noisy as you want to. In the hallway, it's visiting quietly, but it lets them govern themselves.
Okay.
And if they do it appropriately, then they get to visit. If they don't, then they don't. And it's a reward for them for good behavior. And anyway, that's kind of what I do with them.
Okay.
I don't know if
Congratulations. Now that's 5th grade. We're talking about first graders the first day of school. So don't avoid the challenge here. Who has a good idea? We're just almost out of time. Anybody? Nobody came up with, okay, somebody up there did. Yeah? Okay. Uh-huh.
Because they want to run to the lunchroom.
Yeah.
I get to go to the
Yes.
lunchroom. It's so easy just to say, this is our first day and our first chance to use the lunchroom. And I said, and you used to be kindergartners. And now you're not. You're so big now. You're so grown up. You are a first grader. And you can show such an example to these others who have forgotten what it's like to be the first grader, who knows how to self-govern in the hall. Just having them own their own behavior. And they always want to be older than they are.
Yes.
You know. So, yeah, you are a first grader. You have advanced to this stage in your life. And you've learned how to self-govern, because you kinder teacher, I could never do kinder. Can I just tell you, I thought first grade is herding cats and rabbits. Kinder is not even that. It's so beyond. But they do such a great job bringing them up to self-government that you just remind them, now you have advanced to this stage. I know you can do it. Let's see how quietly we can go and how reverently we can go. And normally they love it. They can't wait.
How'd she do? Good. Very good. Very good. Did she have a plan? She really sold her plan well, didn't she? We always want to be more than we were kindergartners. Now we're first graders. Did she make it purposeful? Yeah, I think so. And doable, absolutely. Did she anticipate needs and provide guidelines? Yes. It was good. One more. Okay. Could be that. Could be that.
Taking place on the way to the
Yeah,
lunchroom.
I think your what was your real theme there? Showing respect in the hall, or respect. Right. Yes. Okay, and we're contrasting this with an externally controlled approach, which would be what these guys said. Get in line and stay single file and get to the lunchroom. I know you didn't say that. You were thinking that. Well, here's an idea real quick that I had just thinking about this. I might say, this is fun, every day our class has an opportunity to bless all our schoolmates and school leaders by our hall manners. because the halls belong to everybody and we have an allotted time for lunch, we will go in a manner that shows that first graders know how to respect others. Let's pretend something. We'll line up straight as an arrow, and when I pull my bow, we will glide silently through the hall to the target, the classroom, or the cafeteria. And if we meet Mr. Beckwith, we will stop and say, "Good morning, Mr. Beckwith," with very quiet voices. Otherwise, arrows don't make any noise. And when we get there, let's evaluate how we did and think about how we might do it next time. Do you like that? I like that. All right, we have a 15-minute break. 15 minutes.